Hello, welcome to another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Chris Costa.
And I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
So Joanne, what do you have in mind tonight?
Well, last week we talked about the new custom component type, which is a new feature in 15.2, and I know there's lots more, so I thought maybe we could talk about some of the other enhancements in this build.
Sure, absolutely.
Great.
Sounds good. We can start with employees.
Okay, let's take a look.
All right, so I'm going to start with file maintenance. And if we go to employees, and you'll notice the screen looks a little bit different. In prior versions, you had to enter the employee in multiple spots if they were a CSR,
Right.
a PO agent, an
estimator.
estimator. So now it's all on one table. You can see it here. All the employees are going to be listed out on one row, and then the various options.
Okay, great.
Okay, so if I edit any one of these employees, just as an example, you'll see the check marks boxes at the bottom. So I can just simply add a new employee and check off that they need to be a shop floor, CSR, and maybe a PO agent.
Great.
Okay, hit OK, and it'll save them with those options.
Okay.
Okay, sales reps will still be entered the same way they've always been because of commissions, and they're still on their own separate screen.
Right.
But these employees will all be set up this way here. Flipping over to the shop floor information tab, we added a employee-specific shift time setup where you can now set up an employee with a shift time each day. And then there is an option here you would have to set to use that employee shift table. Otherwise, if it's not set, the table will be ignored, and it'll just look at job costing.
Okay.
The way it does now. Okay. One other, staying on employees but leaving standards, if we go to the user manager section, okay, we now have an option to add a data collection specific user right here in the user manager.
Okay.
And when we add the user, we can also pull in and tie to that employee right from the screen.
Oh, great.
So you don't have to, you won't have to go to two different screens to link the employee together.
Right.
Okay. So if I just hit DC user, it's going to open up to a a login screen. Of course, when I do this, I can't do anything but give them rights to just data collection at this point. Okay. So I would assign a login name. We'll say we're setting up the press, a machine running enterprise out on the press floor. I can assign a password if I want to. I could assign a department code if I want to. I do have to apply the user first, which will save the user, and then I can click the add button, and now I can select an employee to link to this user.
And I assume I can select multiple employees too?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, if I select one here, it's actually going to prompt me, would you like to add more?
Okay.
And I can say yes or no. Okay, so if I say no here, it'll then show you the employee or employees you've selected in the list, and then just hit save to save all the final changes. Okay. Couple of changes at the supplier section. So if we go back to shop standards, up to suppliers, and I'm just going to edit one of my existing vendors. And the first one that's here at the very bottom, and I've got it selected already, auto alert users of any vendor specific notes. This is going to be an alert in AP.
Okay.
So if you have our accounting package specifically with accounts payable, any note, and it goes with the notes here at the bottom on the vendor, any note that's in here will just auto alert when you do the payable invoice.
Similar to what happens in AR.
Yep.
For
People
customers.
that have our accounting today and use that option in AR, it works the exact same way. Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. You'll also notice there's a default markup percentage. Okay, here at the supplier, that would work in conjunction if the vendor was an outside vendor when you do the outside service entry and estimating order entry. And along those same lines, if I were to add a new product or service to this vendor, there's also a markup percentage over here on the left-hand side. Same thing, it'll apply this markup percentage for this
For that service.
for that product.
Okay.
And the product markup will always supersede the vendor's markup.
Okay.
Okay. One other thing with outside services, if we go into estimating order entry, and we actually go to an entry screen, I'll just add a new order and a new component here. So if I go to a process specifically for outside service, add a new one, and go to the cost grid, we've added a field here for a quantity override. And the way it works, let's say I've got at a quantity of 1,000, I know I might need 1,200. Okay, it's still going to be $50 or $100, but I know in order to produce that 1,000, I'm actually going to need 1,200.
Okay.
So I can put in my 1,000 quantity here. Maybe it's going to be $100, but my quantity override at that quantity is really 1,200. So it's almost like built-in spoilage.
Okay.
At that quantity break.
And that's what will show up on the PO.
Exactly.
Okay. Great.
And you could of course have multiple breaks in here. If at 5,000, maybe it's not 5,200. Maybe at that point I need 5,400. Okay.
Right.
So I mean, you could set up your price grid, your quantity break that way.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay. A couple of things with template categories. If I back out of the estimate, go back into standards, template categories. If I add a new one, a couple of new filter options here for component type, template type, and plant ID. Okay, specifically with component type, you'll see the default, I haven't selected anything and it comes in as all.
As all.
So by default it's available for everything. But if I hit the pull down, I could specify a specific component type that it would work for, and it would validate for that component type.
Okay.
Okay. Template type has the option for all full component pre-press or post-press. So if I wanted to make it tied, just to a pre-press or just post-press,
Okay.
or leave it blank, or select all, and it would work for everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then plant ID, straightforward. Okay. There was a minor change with shipping. If I just select a job and go into my shipment record, I'll just use the main sold to address and add a package. Down here at the starting ending numbers for your form numbering, you can now use leading zeros.
Okay.
Where before you couldn't.
Right.
So if I needed my numbers to be, oops, thought I was in the field, 0, 1,000, and then maybe 0, 1,001. Okay. So I could do that, whereas before you were limited 1,000 and 1,001.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. New Postpress option. If I go back into standards and to any Postpress process, click modify. You'll notice there's a field here called default production edge, and there's only two choices. It's either length or width, and it's for linear calculations to tell the system that you want the job run on lengthwise or along the width
Okay.
of the paper.
Great.
Okay. Actually, staying with Postpress for a second, we've also added an option here for to auto-calc the number of cuts from a table.
Okay.
All right, so with that option selected, you can now build a table where you can indicate or have the system automatically generate the number of cuts desired.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, and that table is right here on the same process screen.
Okay.
And so I can build my cut table down here at the bottom. And it looks at the number out and the number of bleeds.
Okay.
So if I say, at number out 1 with no bleeds, it would be, 2 cuts. And maybe number out 1 and it does bleed, maybe it's 4 cuts. Okay. Under the bleed column, 0 being it does not bleed, 1 being it does bleed.
Right.
Okay, so you can build that cut table. As far as I know, there's no limit to how many entries you can have in there.
Okay, great.
Okay? And maybe lastly, an option on the roll stock material. So if we come into roll stock and we go to modify, there's an option for core conversion here. And so if I have my costing method set at per linear foot, but I want to have all cost calculations done maybe in MSI.
Okay.
Okay, and then so if you calculate the estimate component, run the analysis, purchase order, inventory, all that would get calculated in MSI.
So I could just enter the cost in per MSI.
Correct, absolutely.
Great.
Okay, any questions?
Nope, that was great. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, thanks for watching. This was another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Chris Costa.
And I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
Please look forward for more to come.